eighth wonder of the world, basically a geek show. And here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 54 of Basically a Geek Show. I am Mike. With me, as always, is Jack.
Hello, everybody, and we apologize that it's been a couple of weeks. What ended up happening was our last episode. This is actually the second episode 54 that we've recorded. The first one ended up with me and Mike sounding like the offspring of Megatron and a chipmunk. So that has been resolved, though. So our apologies to both of our loyal listeners. And yeah, we've got a lot of shit to go over this week, actually.
It actually kind of worked out because last week was 2 weeks ago when we did the last show. Was kind of you were kind of stretching, it was just kind of a slow week. That happens.
Yeah, and you were sick, and as I recall, neither of us were at the top of our game that day. It was just more or less just us having a conversation than anything else. So you guys really didn't miss that much.
But it just so happens that this week a lot of crap to talk about. So yeah, I think that worked out for the best. So let's dive right in. This is like the big thing that everyone has been... Oh, I remember what we talked about last week. We talked about the Batman trailer. So I guess a quick recap of that.
Oh yeah, and the Star Wars trailer.
Star Wars looks good. Batman v Superman looks...
Shite.
It seems as if Batman, has slipped off his cracker. This cheese has slipped off his cracker. Not that it was ever fully on the cracker to begin with, but... Batman just seems completely insane, and not in a good way. It kind of just doesn't look like an entertaining movie, but Star Wars looks awesome.
Yeah, and I will quickly recap the gist of what I said last week, because now I do remember now, with the Star Wars trailer, because I'm not one to get excited for trailers. I just don't buy the hype normally, but this one actually has me excited. And me not even being really the biggest Star Wars fan in the world. I enjoy the movies, but I'm not, like a lot of people are about them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, good stuff.
Indeed. So, okay, that's out of the way. I guess we can jump into the next big movie-related topic.
Yes, Ultron wants to become a real boy.
Yes, I saw Avengers 2, Pinocchio played by Ultron in the movie. And I could say that because they were shameless with the Pinocchio crap of the strings, no strings on me, motif that all the trailers had. In fact, Ultron even hums that song at one point during the movie. So, I don't feel bad about calling this whole thing Pinocchio with explosions because that's what they were going for.
Hey, at least
obviously.
It wasn't Loki 4.
It wasn't Loki 4, although the Scepter makes an appearance. Loki's Scepter is actually a big part of the movie, but Loki himself doesn't show up, so that was nice. I have nothing against Loki, but...
I don't either, but he's been kind of overdone.
Yeah, so that maybe we can go... although this movie does tease, it lays some groundwork for Thor Ragnarok, so I'm sure that we will get plenty of Loki in that one.
Now, I know you said that this actually... You were kind of with me on this one, as in not really like all that excited for it. Mm-hmm. It was basically going to be, okay, well, I'll go sit and watch shit get blown up real good for 2 hours, and maybe if that's done right, I'll enjoy myself. But you said it actually surpassed your expectations a bit.
It did. In a lot of ways, it didn't, but in a lot of ways, it did, and that's weird. I'll do my best to explain. My main criticism of Ultron just kind of being a boring villain, that I still think holds true because at the end of the day, it's still, intelligent AI meant to save the world wants to destroy it. That's nothing new. And, that's just Ultron. It's why I've been kind of down on this whole thing since they announced that Ultron would be the villain of the second movie because Ultron's just not interesting at all. And, they did some fun stuff with it, particularly over the fact that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's Tony Stark who designs it. In the comic books, it's Ant-Man who designs Ultron, but we haven't gotten to his movie yet, so we can't mention him. So they give it to Tony. Tony's the one who creates Ultron, which honestly makes sense within the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe anyway. And they have some fun. Like there's a comment in the movie, spoilers by the way, that Ultron doesn't know the difference between saving the world and destroying it, and then someone goes, well, where do you think he got that from? And that's obviously Tony, because, basically Tony Stark has a god complex, and then he created an AI that has a god complex, so that's a thing. But, so they have some fun stuff with it, but at the end of the day, it's your standard, Skynet has gone rogue story. That didn't, my low expectations were kind of met there, but in almost every other respect, the movie exceeded my expectations. My other big concern with Ultron going in, based off of, James Spader's performances in the trailers were that they were gonna try really hard to make, Ultron Heath Ledger's Joker.
Right.
And because I got a very Heath Ledger, just the way he talked, in the trailer, the way that, his diction worked in the trailers, I was like, oh, that's Heath Ledger's Joker. Don't try to be Heath Ledger's Joker. And, I was happy to say that they didn't go for that at all. It just so happens that the clips that they picked for the trailer, he just kind of just sounds like Heath Ledger.
Right.
In just those specific instances, but the performance as a whole, they really, went out of their way to give Ultron his own distinct personality. Ultron's kind of a smartass, actually.
Nice.
There's actually, and there's a scene, like, where he's, talking to a weapons dealer, which is, by the way, just setting up more, plot for the Black Panther movie. But there's a weapons dealer scene where, like, the weapons dealer thinks that Ultron is just one of Stark's robots that Tony sent after him.
Right.
And Ultron's like, do not compare me to one of Stark's automatons! And then, like, he rips off his arm, the arm dealer's arm, and he's like, oh, I did not mean to do that. I'm sorry. I'm sure that'll be fine. Like, he doesn't really understand, how humans work.
Right.
He just, like, accidentally rips the guy's arm off. He's like, and then he's, like, really apologetic about it.
Nice. I'm sure we can just put that back on. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. My bad.
So, there's stuff like that, and then there's, like, stuff where, Ultron gets kind of religious, almost. Like, he doesn't express a belief in God, and he kind of even sees himself as a divine figure, but he mentions, like, how he finds beauty in old architecture, or in medieval architecture, or in religious writing. Like, so he's got, like, he's not just, like, standard Cylon robotic man. He's got an appreciation, for art, for culture. So, that was nice. They did stuff they were kind of going like, yeah, it's Skynet, but we're gonna try to make it as interesting as possible.
Oh, at least they did that, because, and we were just kind of candidly discussing this last night, but the whole robot trope is just so fucking overplayed, and very few times does anyone make really any kind of noticeable attempt to break out of it.
I wouldn't... Ultron's weird. Ultron isn't gonna redefine how Hollywood handles robots, but he was entertaining, and he had his own distinct personality, and that personality wasn't Heath Ledger's Joker. So, in all respects, I can call Ultron a pleasant surprise. In terms of his character design, because I just wanted to touch on this, Ultron has a very kind of jack-o'-lantern type head in the comic books.
Right.
And he's got a kind of a very sleek body in the comics. And they kept that character design almost verbatim for his, like, Ultron clones.
Right.
But for Ultron himself, they gave him a completely new body. And I understand why they did it, because he's got a more expressive face on his main body. And I guess that was to allow the CGI model to quote-unquote act.
Right.
But at the same time, I just kind of thought it looked like crap, and I was like, you should have just gone with the comic book Ultron body, because that's kind of cool. And now he's just a weird metal person. So, But, character design-wise, I wasn't a fan, but all in all, Ultron was a pleasant surprise. They kind of addressed the fact that Hawkeye is useless by making him the comic relief.
Well, that's good.
There's a scene, like the movie starts off, with the Avengers, raiding a Hydra installation, and, it's kind of funny because they're all doing their thing, and then there's just this Humvee driving through the woods with Hawkeye standing out of the sunroof firing arrows. I'm like, God, you look like such a jackass. Like, look at me, guys, I'm doing things with my bow and arrow.
I'm an Avenger.
It's like, yeah, that was, but then they kind of made him the comic relief, and that's the best place for Hawkeye. Although, they later also reveal that he's got a wife and kids on some remote farm, and the reason we've never heard about it, he's like, I keep my professional and personal lives separate, and, y'all don't need to know that I've got a family, but they go to his farm, basically, to meet up with with Nick Fury, who's been off the grid since the end of Winter Soldier.
Right.
And so, it's funny because they go to the farm to hide out after Ultron kicks their asses. And Tony is just sort of like wandering around, and Tony's in the barn, and like Nick Fury steps out from like a stall, like a horse stall. It's like, has Nick Fury been waiting there since the end of Captain America 2, just waiting? It's like, one of these days, Tony's gonna show up, I'm gonna have shit to say.
He's just sitting there in the horse stall, chilling, having some oats, drinking beer out of a trough, horse stuff, playing in the poop,
Yeah.
Kind of having some retirement, depression there, led to some unfortunate incidents with the horse apples. Yeah.
But I've been kind of jumping all over the place. I'm gonna, I guess, try to scale things back, start from, the beginning. So, basically, the plot is that Loki's scepter, which was the main MacGuffin of the first Avengers film, S.H.I.E.L.D. took that into custody. But of course, as we know from Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra.
Right. So
Hydra has actually had control of the scepter since, I guess since the Avengers, the first film. And, they've been performing experiments on it. They explain away, actually, that the Scarlet Witch and, Quicksilver, they're not mutants. They've been given superpowers by Hydra's experimentation with the scepter. And they completely sidestep the fact that Magneto's their dad. Magneto's not their dad in this. Their backstory in this film is that they're from some, former Soviet republic, and, during a civil war, a bomb blew up their apartment building and killed their parents, and the bomb was made by Stark Industries, so now they've got, hate revenge boners for Tony.
Gotcha.
So they completely sidestepped the Magneto's their dad and their mutants plot lines. They're just like, no, they can't even call them mutants. Their DNA has been mutated, but they're not mutants. We're not allowed to say that word.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, like I had said before when we were talking about that, it's really the only logical thing they could do was to just ignore it altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So
they kind of invented new backstories for them that didn't involve the mutant thing because Fox has all that shit on lockdown.
Yeah, so they did what they had to do with that, and it works.
It does. It does. Of course, comic book fans might be disappointed, but, that's the reality of the business arrangements that, exist in Hollywood. That's also what happens when Marvel sells the rights to a shit ton of their properties, a shit ton of their most, popular properties to other studios before they realize that they want to be their own studio. So
now, what were some of the parts of this movie that you felt did not meet your already mediocre expectations?
there's a romance plot between the Hulk and Black Widow.
She loves him when he's angry, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. The actors,
Hope she has pet insurance, because he's gonna murder that pussy.
yeah.
Aw, yeah. Aw, yeah.
I mean, like, okay, both the actors do great jobs in the role. The dialogue, but it's just like the dialogue, like Joss Whedon's dialogue. This isn't as Whedon-y as the first film, but you can still tell that Joss Whedon, if he didn't write the whole thing, definitely had a hand in it. And the thing about Joss Whedon, and maybe it's because his career was sort of defined by Buffy.
Right.
But it's just like, even when he's writing adults, his romance plots always have that high school angsty drama feel to them.
Right.
And you definitely got that with the Hulk and Black Widow in this film, and it's a case where I'm like, I don't care for this at all. Like my sensibilities when it comes to romance and fiction have evolved, I guess, or, matured beyond that, and that fell flat. Again, actors did a fine job for the material they were given. I just didn't think the material they were given was particularly strong. Other than that, a big concern of mine was that this film, so much of it is set up for other movies. Either it's set up for more Avengers films, or it's set up for other Marvel films, like Thor has a dream sequence. It's basically a giant setup for Thor Ragnarok, the third Thor movie.
Right.
And the whole scene where they go to South Africa to deal with an arms dealer, that entire thing, even the arms dealer losing his arm, that's an entire setup for the Black Panther movie that's coming. And it's very comic booky in that way. And so as a comic book fan, I don't mind it. But, as sort of a film fan, I'm like, I'd kind of like it if some Marvel films were just films in their own right. And they didn't have to try to squeeze so much backstory in for other movies.
Less time supporting other movies and more time being its own movie.
Indeed.
I gotcha.
Indeed. And in fact, a lot of that's another problem I had, was that, like, the plot, for as cliched as Ultron's plot is, at the end of the day, it is simple and it can work, and it has a lot of opportunity for shit to blow up real good. So I think the film actually would have been stronger if they just kept the focus on Ultron wants to destroy the world, we have to stop him. But instead they worked in the Infinity Gem angle. The core of Loki's scepter is an Infinity Gem. And they use that to create Vision, who is another synthetic robot who was created by Ultron, but it's empowered by the Infinity Gem and has the AI of Jarvis, Tony's AI butler.
Right.
So, I mean, as a comic book fan, I know what the Infinity Gems are. I know who Vision is. So I'm like, okay, whatever. But if you're not a comic book fan, that could just be another level of confusion.
Right.
Like, that they could have just sidestepped if they had just said, the plot is we have to stop Ultron. But instead they introduced Vision and the Infinity Gems and these Thor Ragnarok flashbacks. And if you're not a comic book fan, and the vast majority of your general movie-going audience isn't, that might get a bit confusing.
Well, I don't think that's going to be anything that changes, because these Marvel movies, I mean, they're making more of them. They're introducing more characters, more heroes, and such. And as they do that, the interconnectivity between these movies is going to only become more and more deepened because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think this is going to be anything that you're going to see going away anytime soon, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe they'll learn how to execute it better to where, it maybe doesn't feel quite so intentional. Make it flow more naturally within the plot that they're trying to establish. Because, you have to keep in mind, and I will kind of go to bat for Marvel on this one thing, it's one of those things, no one's really ever done this before with movies.
No one has, and I commend Marvel, for that entirely. It's just that, again, as someone who's been reading comics for 17 years now. Wow.
And you mold young minds.
I do. It's scary. But as someone who's read comic books for 17 years now, who knows how comic books work, I love the fact that Marvel has basically treated their cinematic universe like comic books. They're all interconnected. They all reference each other. It's all very ambitious, and it's very awesome to see as a comic book fan. But as a comic book fan, I'm watching these movies and I'm like, oh, we've gotten to that point. And this is a point that all comic book fans know. This is what happens when the ideas start to run out. And I'll tell you what that means. In comic books, whenever people start to run out of ideas, stuff gets really weird. Because you've exhausted all the immediate crap that you can do with Tony Stark. You've exhausted all the shit you can do with Captain America. You've done everything with Thor and Hulk and all these characters. And now, so what happens when you start to run out of ideas? You go to space and you fight a giant space god who worships death.
As one will do.
And that's what we're getting. That's the point we've gotten to now with Thanos. And Thanos makes his third appearance, actually. He is the mid-credit sequence. Basically, at the end of the Avengers movies, Thor is like, it's no coincidence that all of these Infinity Gems have just started popping up these last couple of years. There is some other force at work here who's masterminding all of the crap that's happened. And so, I am going to go back to Asgard to seek answers. So, that's kind of how the movie ends. And then the mid-credit sequence is, Thanos, and he opens up his, safe deposit box or something, and he pulls out the Infinity Gauntlet, sans the gems, and he goes, I guess I'll do it myself. And so this is the third time Thanos has actually appeared without doing a single goddamn thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the other day when we kind of talked about this just on our own, that they're just being so much of a cock tease with Thanos. That,
he better be the most kick-ass guy out, and he is in the comics, but they've really got to go all in convincing us in these movies, because he appeared in the after-credit sequence of Avengers. He appeared as a very minor character in Guardians of the Galaxy, and now he's showing up in the after-credit sequence of Avengers 2, and he hasn't done crap in any of these appearances, so he better rock the fucking Shazbah when he finally does show up.
Well, now, see, what's going to happen is, you'll think it's Thanos for the first half of the movie.
And then it's just drunken Ian Anderson.
Right, exactly. It'll be Ben Kingsley's character from Iron Man 3 who is really Thanos.
Iron Man will bust. It's like, okay, Thanos, it's time to end this. And then it'll just be, oh, Trevor, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. God damn it, Trevor.
And it's just a drunken Ben Kingsley in a Thanos suit with the arm missing and the head off in the corner.
Yeah.
And he's drinking beer, watching soccer. Ole, 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 ole.
Exactly.
Oh god.
So, Avengers 2 then, not quite the holocaust upon the cinematic community that you and I may have thought it would be. Though, to be fair, we never thought it would be that. We just figured it'd be mediocre, and it seems like it kind of in a lot of ways is.
It is, but the best way I can describe it is that it is the upper tier of mediocre, where it doesn't really blow you away, but it's mediocre, but you don't really feel bad for having wasted your time with it. You're like, that killed an afternoon.
Right, yeah.
And so, which is actually kind of my critique of the last Thor movie, and an Avengers movie should kind of be above, the Thor sequel, but, there it is. another thing, the movie ends, like, Thor goes back to investigate the Infinity Gems in Asgard, and then basically, they lay the groundwork for, like, quote-unquote, the new team of Avengers. Because at the end of Avengers 2, Hulk exiles himself because he's like, I'm too dangerous to live in the world. Hawkeye retires to his farm.
Not that that's any real loss.
No. And then Tony Stark Tony doesn't really quit. He just kind of goes, I'm rich and I'm bored, so I'm gonna take off. And then he drives away in a convertible.
Right.
And then so basically, Captain America and Black Widow are leading the new team of Avengers who consist of them, Vision, War Machine, and Scarlet Witch. Quicksilver dies, spoilers.
Good.
So he gets his ass shot.
He did.
He did. Although
he did.
people have been saying, oh, he's not really dead because it's comic books and, nobody stays dead in comic books. So, they might bring him back, but people are speaking with absolute authority that they'll bring him back. Like, I don't think so, cause, like, he's not integral to anything. You don't need to have Quicksilver, especially if Fox is going to make him a centerpiece of their X-Men films. Marvel may not want a second version of the character running around.
Right.
Especially since, Fox, got the jump on them because they introduced him almost a year prior in Days of Futures Past. So, they kind of don't want to be playing catch up, with Fox. And I guess everyone's going to be saying, oh, the real Quicksilver's in the X-Men films. So why not just, kill him off now and then you don't have to bring him up again.
Right.
And his death is good pathos for Scarlet Witch. So, that's nice.
So, we have that. I want to go ahead and move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about. Now, we mentioned the other day, or a few weeks ago rather, about Hideo Kojima leaving Konami.
Yeah.
And now it's since been rumored, and there seems to be some credence to it, that he may have in fact been fired.
Mm-hmm.
God only knows why. But Konami, that was only the second quote-unquote great talent to leave Konami. The other one, who is frankly much more partial to me, being Koji Igarashi.
Okay.
He is the mind behind the Castlevania series.
Okay.
Now, he left Konami, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. And, you had, Kenji Inafune, the creator of Mega Man, who started the Mighty Number 9 project on Kickstarter. And he ended up getting, buku bucks, and that game is now, I think, in the beta stage, and should be out later on this year. And we all kind of were sitting and just thinking, okay, well, Igarashi's going to be doing something eventually, and when we seen the Mighty Number 9 Kickstarter, most of us were thinking, like, all right, we want to see this for Castlevania.
Yes.
Give us one of these for Castlevania. And we've got it.
Well, I guess the question I have to ask, though, is why? Because has the official Castlevania series dropped the ball that we need an unofficial version?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
It's become Devil May Cry. It's become God of War.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of lacked that flavor to it, that feeling that a Castlevania game should have. Castlevania games always had this very distinct atmosphere to them, this distinctive play style, for better or worse in some cases. And there's basically 2 types of Castlevania games. Well, 3 if you want to count the more recent iterations. But there's 2 of the classic Vania type. And those are, your old 8-bit NES type, where, the clunky stair mechanics and the goddamn Medusa heads and all this other shit. And then you have the kind post-Symphony of the Night for PlayStation 1 that created its own genre that's been referred to as Metroidvania, where it's in kind of the backdrop of Castlevania, but the gameplay and style is similar to Metroid, and that
kind of puzzle-oriented?
Kind of, in a way. It still has a lot of action to it, but there's it's very exploration focused.
Okay.
You do a lot of exploration for power-ups and you do a lot of backtracking because as you get more power-ups, more doors become available for you to go through. Things like that.
Gotcha.
And, it became, a very popular formula over the years and it's been emulated many, many times. And for me personally, now I haven't played Aria of Sorrow and some of the ones on like Game Boy Advance and stuff like that. I've heard that they're magnificent and one day, I'll try them. But for me, I've played Symphony of the Night, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. I love it. But, we've kind of been, when Lords of Shadow came out, and more specifically its sequel, Lords of Shadow 2. 2 was where it really jumped the shark.
Okay.
2 was where it stopped really even trying to be a Castlevania game in so many respects, because, it takes place in the modern world, for example. And, you have your quote-unquote protagonist character, Gabriel Belmont, who actually ends up becoming Dracula, or
How
who
the
is...
fuck does that work?
Long story, power of the dark side, lost love. He goes Anakin Skywalker, basically. But he's still kind of like the good guy kind of a thing. It's weird. And that's just another way it kind of jumped the shark. But, you have Castlevania taking place in the modern world, and it goes back to, like, Dracula's castle, except it's, like, your home base, and there's really nothing fulfilling or interesting.
Is there a mode where you can pimp out your Castle Dracula?
No. No, there's not.
Can you yell, "Bitch, I eat people"?
I mean, you can yell that at your TV, yes. Now, how much good it will do you, I couldn't tell you. I mean, if you just want to do it for fun and shiggles, sure, knock yourself out. But the actual creator of Castlevania has launched a Kickstarter for a game entitled Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. He asked for $500,000. He has received, and this has been since, I want to say, May 11th. So this has been going on about a week. And he's received 2.1 million in change.
Huh.
So this is going to be something that
So he's met his stretch goals.
He has met stretch goals. I don't know. I haven't really actually looked at them. The game itself, though, looks magnificent. It is old school Castlevania meeting like the Metroidvania subgenre. He's even getting, I'm going to try to pronounce his name, Michiro Yamane, who has composed so many of the best musical scores for these games in the past. He's got her in on this. And so you've basically got your classic Castlevania team doing this game. And, this is just kind of this trend that's going on where you're starting to see more of the big name talent leaving these huge monolithic developers that evidently can't do anything right to save their own fucking lives and just doing their own thing.
Well, I don't get that because, okay, this isn't just something unique to Castlevania. I mean, I'm a Star Fox fan. Star Fox decided, hey, let's completely change the genre of the video games all the fans like.
Right.
We saw how that went. And we'll give you one level of classic Star Fox just to piss you off.
Right. They fucking cock tease you, yeah.
And I just wanted to say, and then Metroid being another one, like, I actually love, classic Metroid style games, and then they fucked that away with Other M.
If you ask me, they fucked it away with Metroid Prime.
I actually never played Metroid Prime.
No.
That was just one, that was a game, that was on the GameCube, right?
Right. And me and like three other people had a GameCube.
I had a GameCube, but I bought the GameCube specifically for a Godzilla game, actually, and so, I don't know, it was just one of those things where the GameCube never impressed me, and I was like, I'm a Metroid fan, but I can't justify spending the money on this game for a system that I'm just not really feeling. There was a sister game to Metroid Prime. The title escapes me entirely, but it was made for the Game Boy Advanced.
Right.
And it was like a sister game. Like, if you used one of their, if you used one of the accessories for the GameCube to attach to your Game Boy Advance, you could unlock shit in Metroid Prime if you had this game. I never played Prime. I had the Game Boy Advance game. I loved it because it was classic Metroid. But I did play Other M, and I was like, the fuck did you do to my game? And why won't Samus shut up about the baby? The baby.
The baby.
But,
and see,
and so, you know, I understand why it happens, because you have these executives who are like, oh, people like this game, we should turn our games into this game. But they don't understand that the people who buy their games, okay, the people who buy, say, classic, Castlevania, who buy Castlevania want a Castlevania game, right?
Right.
If you turn Castlevania into God of War, you're only going to piss off the people who are Castlevania fans.
Right.
Because the God of War fans,
they're playing fucking God of War.
Yeah, they're gonna buy God of War. They're not gonna buy Castlevania.
Right. And, you know, and there's so many God of War clones. You had, Darksiders, I wanted to say it's called, which is good. Of course, though, I mean, even God of War itself, it was kind of a rip-off of Devil May Cry, which, again, was a very good game, and it had a lot of... Devil May Cry was what, you know, the Lords of Shadow series for Castlevania is trying to be, but it's already been done. It was called Devil May Cry. Before the reboot, fuck that thing. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm looking, and I did send you the link in the Skype chat, Mike, and you can kind of see some of the screenshots of this. It looks magnificent. Okay. It's got kind of a PS1, PS2 look to it. And it's the visuals on this are just stunning. It's very atmospheric.
See, this is kind of what I like, honestly, because basically for those, and if anyone's interested in what I'm looking at, you just have to Google Kickstarter for Bloodstained Kickstarter, and it'll come up. And,
or maybe we can get Greg to put a link to it.
I'll talk to Greg about putting a link in the episode description. But what we've got here is, it's classic, it's classic game mechanics, but done in modern graphics. Yeah. So it's too many of these games. Another one, Mario 64 is actually an example of this, where they had this new technology and they went so far that they betrayed the concept of the series.
Right.
But here, like, let's use the advanced technology to make a classic style game. And that's what I like. It's the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And you know, and I've gone on the Mario 64 rant before, and I'm aware of how much in the minority you and I are in disliking that game.
Fuck that game.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. But, you know, and that was the last time Nintendo really pissed me off. The next time Nintendo really pissed me off was this week when my 2-month-old Wii U died. I need to call them. I might be like, fuckers, my goddamn Super Nintendo still works.
Well,
okay?
You know, look, I've seen the Wii U sales figures. You can't afford to have an Xbox situation.
Right? Yeah, no, my roommate borrowed it, and he says the next day, he's like, Jack, your Wii U broke. I'm like, what'd you do to it, fuckstick? And he says, it's just not reading disc. I didn't do anything to it. I'm like, alright. Who made the fucking thing? Microsoft? You know, what the fuck? Seriously? But anyways, going off the reservation there. And this is what these games should be. Use the new technology to improve what you've already got. I know that's a very conservative view, and if my viewpoints on this were followed, we would have missed out on a lot of the, you know, innovative titles that have gone on to break new ground and things like that. But there is something to be said for just sticking with what works and mm-hmm. evolution as opposed to revolution, you know?
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And, it's interesting, that this is not just something confined to the video game industry. I don't know if you've heard of, it's in terms of Transformers, action figures. I don't know if you've heard a group called Play With This 2.
Called what?
It's called Play With This 2.
No.
It's a bad name, and that's actually one of the least of their problems, but I will get to that. Basically what happened is, it's a bunch of people who used to work for Hasbro. The two main people involved are Aaron Archer and Rick Alvarez. Aaron Archer was actually the project brand manager on Transformers for many years, since actually the original Robots in Disguise line. So we're going back to 2001. He recently parted ways with Hasbro, and he and Rick Alvarez, who was someone who worked under him on the brand, who was also let go, they formed a company with a bunch of other ex-Hasbro employees called Play of List 2. They tried to kickstart, fund, a series of figures they wanted to do. It did not reach their goal, but anybody who wants to do a Kickstarter should really study the Play of List 2 Kickstarter, because for as much as these guys know what it takes to make a toy line, marketing was not their strong point, and it showed with the Kickstarter. So that's a good example of what not to do. My point, though, is that you see this not just in video games. Again, here's an instance where you have a company, a large company, and you have people who are almost synonymous with the brand who have left for one reason or another, and they're like, we're going to do our own thing.
Right.
And I don't know. Like, a lot of people are saying Kickstarter's the future of consumer goods, and I don't think it is, but it is a very interesting trend that we've seen.
I don't think it's the quote unquote future of consumer goods, but I think it's going to be an integral part of the free market system, where you can present something to people and say, hey, if you want this, pitch in and we'll make it happen. And it's a good way for projects that normally would be too risky for your bigger name companies to get backing that would be embraced by the public as a whole. And I think that's a very good thing, and it gives opportunity for smaller companies and upstarts to, bring innovation and competition into the marketplace. And if there's one thing that the video game, industry needs right now, it is competition, at least among software developers.
Well, everyone seems to, these fiefdoms have sort of popped up where, some third-party developers like to focus on PS4, some on Xbox One, and nobody's focusing on the Wii U because it's terrible. And
I don't know, Mike. Mine broke.
So
I broke my Wii.
But there's a situation where everyone seems to have carved out their niches, and it's technically a free market system, but it's really not, because nobody's really competing with anyone. Everyone sort of carved out the niches, and there seems to be an unspoken agreement that no one's going to infringe on anyone's turf.
Right. And, and at least in terms of publishers and shit like that, I mean, you've got the evil empire, EA overshadowing so much. You've got your EAs, your Activisions.
Well, hey, in terms of EA, another case of this is, Richard Garriott. Some people might know him as Lord British.
Right.
He created the Ultima games. His company, Origin Systems, got bought out by EA. He worked for EA for a while to continue making the Ultima games, but he got so fed up with their bullshit that he left. And he's doing his own...
Betrayed me!
He's doing his own version of, the Ultima series.
Isn't it just called Avatar?
It's called Avatar. He actually tried to get the rights to the Ultima series from EA. It's like, hey, you guys aren't going to do anything.
And he was blasted with Force lightning.
Yeah, and then like the president, yeah, exactly. The president of EA was, Emperor Palpatine blasted him with Force lightning. So he's just going to make his own Ultima style game called Avatar, or Quest for the Avatar, something like that. But it is basically an Ultima game, and it's an old school style Ultima game. So you kind of, that's another case where, he's saying, screw you guys, you're not doing it right. So again, it's definitely a trend. And I'd like to see this sort of thing, catch on, particularly within the video game, spectrum. And even the action figure spectrum, Play of List 2's initial Kickstarter was, quite frankly, their undoing. It was just kind of a bad Kickstarter, but if they can shore that up, then I mean, the possibilities are simply fantastic, and I'd like to see more of this stuff get expanded upon in the future. Who knows? Maybe this is the only way we'll actually get a decent Final Fantasy game. Because
you never know.
Lord knows, Square Enix seems, drunk high off their own farts.
Their heads are so far up their own fucking asses that I don't even. I mean, 15 looks like it's going to have some promise. I don't know. I'm skeptical. But
13 was garbage, and 14 was literally unplayable.
14 wasn't, I mean, now, to their credit, to be fair, when they re-released 14, it's been heralded as a very good game, a very solid MMO. They did it right the second time, but it shouldn't have taken 2 times.
No, exactly. You're not an indie studio, that you're Square Enix. You shouldn't release a product to the public that is unplayable.
Well, the thing is, most indie studios don't do that. It's the big ones that do the fuck-ups. It's EA that releases Battlefield 4 in an unplayable state with crash servers. It's Blizzard that releases Diablo 3, a single-player game that has to be online, and, for a week no one can log into the sodding thing. It's the big companies that make these huge fuck-ups.
I was actually thinking more along the lines of the guys who made Superpower, the Superpower series, where it's, unplayable out of the box.
Well, the thing is, though, that wasn't the developer's fault. That was the publisher.
Yep. But they themselves are they are the most independent of independent studios, because that game is made in some guy's garage.
Right, yeah. Jean-René Couture, the lead designer, of the Superpower series, and for those who don't know about it, it's an old, geopolitical, strategy game, basically.
Who everyone who wants to be an elected leader of a country should have to play this before their candidacy becomes valid.
Not only should they have to play it, they should have to play it with us.
Yeah.
What's his guy's name? The great Shikazi?
The Great Shikazi. The Great
Shikazi, yeah. They should have to play with the Great Shikazi.
Leader of Gaboon.
Yeah. But, the Great Shikazi is going to send all of his navy. He wipe out US. He no care. The Great Shikazi invite all world leaders to barbecue. It'd be fun.
The Great Shikazi barbecue carriers.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to venture into inside joke territory, guys. But yeah, we're going way off reservation. But yeah, it's the smaller developers that normally, with, a few exceptions being Superpower, but that was, 10, 15 years ago. Nowadays, though, they usually have their shit together more than the big companies do, because
big
for
guys
them
also tend to use the consumer base as unpaid beta testers.
Right, and now we've gone from being unpaid beta testers to paying them to fucking beta test it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that's not right. And the thing is, with these smaller indie projects, they're works of passion, and therefore the quality, in most cases, I'm not saying there's no bad indie games, because there are a score of them, but they're all at least works of passion, and, they do try. Where they see the end product is more than just, hey, how much money can we make out of this? They're doing it in most instances because it's something that they're passionate about, that they want to do, this idea that they want to give life to, and if other people happen to enjoy it, then they're all the happier for it. And you've seen so many breakaway titles, that have come about because of that mentality, like Terraria and Super Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac, and these indie games that just take everything by storm and that everyone just fucking loves. Those Super Meat Boy myself, I can't get into that too goddamn hard. But I digress. There's the indie movement in video gaming, which it is a bubble that will burst eventually. I'm sure of it. But right now they're still putting out good stuff.
It's inevitable. Everything eventually bursts. There's always everything bursts. Basically, you have in almost every case, you have the initial excitement. Everyone goes overboard, and then the bubble bursts, and then things kind of return to a more sustainable medium, I guess, is the best way to say it. So, it's the free market in action. Basically, you're going to get a glut of these indie games. There's going to be a lot of good. There's going to be a lot of crap.
Right.
Bubble's going to burst. The crap's going to vanish, and the good stuff's going to be strong enough to survive.
Right, exactly. But, the good thing is, like, a lot of the genres that I grew up playing and still enjoy, like, side-scrolling shooters and the Mega Man-esque games and the Castlevania-esque games, they are now still alive and well because of these indie developers. So, for us older blokes who just cut our teeth on these types of games and get tired of the fucking glitz and glamour of infinite fucking cutscenes and all this other shit, we've got something that we can actually play and enjoy now. And
God damn it, just make a Metal Gear Solid movie!
Right.
That's what you obviously want to do!
And now, I hear in the background our next topic, Mike has recently gone toy shopping, and then once he logged off of Bad Dragon's website, he then went to Walmart and and then bought these. So
yes. Speaking of Transformers, actually, and this is where I think the Transformers video game comparison kind of falls flat, because while the video game industry is in desperate need of this independent take on it, there's really nothing wrong with Hasbro's current treatment of Transformers. In fact, I'd say the current Combiner Wars series is probably the best Transformers line that we've gotten since 2006's Classics series kind of kicked off the Generations train. And so I'm here to talk to you guys about the first two waves of Transformers Combiner Wars figures. And now I want to add some caveats to this. I'm going to be talking about the main figures. There are going to be a few Legends figures that were part of this that I didn't pick up. I didn't pick up, for example, Legends Thundercracker or anything like that, so I'm not going to be talking about him, but I am going to be talking about the main figures that form the main robots, the main combiners for the first two waves. So those would be the Stunticons in the case of the Decepticons, and the Aerialbots in the case of the Autobots. Now, one quick story before we kind of delve in. So wave 2 was the Stunticons. So I'm in Walmart, and I see that they've got all four of the Stunticon limbs. So that would be off-road, breakdown, dead end, and drag strip. Like, sweet. So I go to look for Motormaster, the torso. He's not there. Like, odd. I mean, he should have come out at the same time, but whatever. Around 3 weeks later, actually, just yesterday, I'm back in Walmart. And I see Motormaster. Every Motormaster, the box has been beat to hell. So my theory is that 3 weeks ago, all of the Motormasters fell out of the back of the truck somewhere along the 401. And they've only now recently gone and dug them out of a ditch.
Could be. I mean, God only knows what the fuck happened to him. They were evidently, I'm guessing, maybe lost somewhere or something. I don't know.
But I mean, the toy himself is fine. No problems there. But his box was beat to hell, as was every other Motormaster on the shelf. But that's just a funny diversion. What would you like to hear about first? Aerialbots or Stunticons?
Well, neither actually. Before we go into the ins and outs of the specific toys, okay. On the whole, because the quality seems to be, I guess you could say, I've noticed with these things it tends to be usually like wave wide. Overall, with the build quality of these, how would you say that they are?
Build quality?
Yeah.
I'd say all of them are fantastic. I know some people have complained about some loose joints on certain figures. The loosest figure I have is actually Motormaster, which, would be concerning for a torso, except for the fact that when I say loose, he's the loosest in comparison to everyone else.
Right.
And everyone else is so good that even Motormaster is just a bit on the floppy side, but he's still, in terms of build quality, The plastic's top quality, the looseness is almost non-existent. Even on Motormaster, he can still hold a pose, he can still hold up his teammates, everything, build quality, I have absolutely no complaints.
Okay, and
the paint work has been exquisite across all the figures.
And so we'll start with Superion then.
Okay, so Superion is actually a good choice because he's my favorite of the two so far. So the aerial bots. Now, both the aerial bots and Stunticons traditionally have 5 members. Each one in this case actually has 6 because the way that they did it was they made the torso a Voyager size figure. Each of the limbs was deluxe, and then they added a Legends size figure, the smaller figures, 1 each. The Legend size figure, in the case of the aerial bots, is Powerglide, and I guess they chose Powerglide because, you know, he is an Autobot airplane, so why not just make him an aerial bot, right?
So maybe they should have like a crossover of Powerglide and Astrotrain. Now you get it. Anyways.
Oh, okay. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But so here's the thing. In terms of being, you know, a quote-unquote aerial bot, Powerglide actually isn't, okay, his toy's actually very good. Great robot mode, great vehicle mode. They integrate him into Superion by giving him a third, gun mode. And the gun modes, one, it doesn't really work because he's not really integrated into the robot, he's just a gun.
Right.
And 2, the gun mode just looks like a plane that's been folded up into the general shape of a gun. So his gun mode's kinda weak, his integration into Superion's weak, but in terms of being an updated Powerglide figure, again, great build quality, great plastic quality, great paintwork, so as a Powerglide figure, he's still cool. Maybe you don't want to use him as a gun for Superion, because Superion actually comes with his own gun, but as a standalone Powerglide figure, pretty good. No complaints. Of all the torso figures that have been released, Silverbolt, the Voyager, aerial bot, is by far the strongest. He still does that thing that all, Silverbolts do, where his robot mold just kind of folds up underneath the plane. But he's integrated enough that it works. Again, build quality is great. The real place where Silverbolt shines, though, is his torso mode. He basically flips over. His arms, his standalone robot mode arms become Superion's thighs. And his legs then form the front of his torso with panels flipping over to reveal his chest, and the panels that form his chest are tucked away on the outside of his legs that honestly, if you just have him standing there as Silverbolt, you won't even notice. And his torso mode is just so good, it's so well proportioned, absolutely fantastic. And the great thing, the thing that really surprised me is that nothing just folds away to hang there free floating. Everything in every mode, in all 3 of his modes, plane, robot, or torso, everything has a place to plug in, so nothing feels flimsy, is what I'm getting at.
Right.
Everything locks into place, absolutely no complaints, easily the best torso. Not that that's a knock against, Motormaster, but it's just that Silverbolt just kind of brings it, for lack of a better term. Now, the limbs. His limbs are, Skydive, Air Raid, Firefly, and Alpha Bravo. All 4 of them, it's interesting. All of them, each individually, they're all great. The thing that will kinda potentially drive some people away is that they're all basically the same toy. The shell's different, the parts are different, they've all got their own unique sculpts, But in terms of engineering, they're all the same. They all transform the exact same way. They all transform into an arm or leg the exact same way. And they all have the same layout in robot mode, where the back part of the aircraft becomes the legs. The front part of the aircraft folds to form the backpack, and then the torso and head are formed from the undercarriage.
Right.
Thing is, though, that's how they were in G1.
Right, yeah.
So, it's kind of like, if the goal is to update the aerial bots, they did a perfect job, because they're basically the G1 figures with joints. So, some people might be put off by it's like, they're all just the same, but at the same time, it's appropriate given what they are.
Well, that's kind of now, with the exception of the remake of Bruticus that we got recently.
That was Fall of Cybertron, which, by the way, some people had problems with that toy. If Fall of Cybertron Bruticus wasn't your cup of tea, don't be scared off from Combiner Wars, because in just the 3 years since then, they have perfected the Combiner technology. Combiner Wars stuff honestly blows that Bruticus away in terms of just build quality and Combiner engineering.
Yeah,
just putting that out there.
And my issue with that Bruticus was always that it was very awesome, but it was also very flimsy.
Absolutely no. Okay, the Combiner ports here. It's a new kind of Combiner port I haven't seen. Basically, on the torso, each torso obviously has 4 Combiner ports, one for each limb.
Ports.
They're spring-loaded, right? So
spring-loaded.
What? So you basically get. So just as an example, you get Silverbolt into torso mode, right? Then you get Skydive. You turn them into leg mode. You slide them into the Combiner port. You can yank on Silverbolt. I mean, you can yank on Air Raid. He's not coming out.
And I bet you have.
The only way that a limb is going to come out of these new Combiner ports is if you make the very specific motion to unlock the spring-loaded gimmick, the spring-loaded mechanism. Otherwise, they're dead solid.
And that's good. And Hasbro should patent this as cat-proofing technology.
Yeah, no, your cat can knock this stuff over and they're not gonna fall apart.
Yeah, because old Bruticus, not cat-proof technology.
No.
Like, Zoe would look at Bruticus and he just,
yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah, no. The Combiner ports on Bruticus, they don't use those at all. These are new Combiner ports. They're sturdy, they're solid, no complaints there. So in terms of variety of the aerial bots, Alpha Bravo is the most unique because he's a helicopter. The rest are jets. So just because he's a helicopter, he's got his own unique kind of flavor, I guess, for lack of a better term. But they all use kind of the same transformation scheme, and I've seen some people complain about it. I don't mind it because, again, it's the aerial bots. You accepted this when you heard that, they were updating the aerial bots. That's just how the aerial bots are. So they're all pretty cool. The weakest I'd say is Skydive, and that's just an aesthetic thing. I like Firefly and Air Raid the best. They're solid. They're solid guys. So that's kind of the aerial bots, really. Superion as a standalone figure, by the way, Superion, the combined Superion is awesome. Motormaster, kind of skipping ahead, Menasor, the Constructicon combined form, he's kind of bulky and his proportions are just a bit off. But on Superion, the proportions are perfect when you get him into combined form. Like, Superion doesn't feel like 5 combined robots. He feels like a complete figure in and of himself. He's that good.
Right.
So Superion, definitely the best one so far. Knocked it out of the park. No complaints, really. I do have one set of complaints, but it's universal across the whole line, so I'm gonna wait until I'm done with the Stunticons, and then I'll bring up what my one major complaint is about Combiner Wars. But, before I get to that, the Stunticons themselves. Now, the Stunticons, I don't know, the Stunticons are weird. I really like Breakdown as a character. Breakdown's always been one of my favorite Decepticons, and at first when I saw these, I thought, you know what? I never really cared about the rest of them. Maybe I won't get the Stunticons. Maybe I'll just get Breakdown. But then I thought, no, that's stupid. You know what? I'm already into the whole Combiner War thing. Just get Menasor. And so I did. And Breakdown, I guess I'll start with him because, he's easily my favorite. I love him. Breakdown's car mode is right out of the 1980s. He's got a very boxy kind of European sports car kind of feel.
Is there cocaine in the trunk?
Oh, of course. They went all out in homaging the 80s. He comes with a Reagan Bush bumper sticker and
nice.
Cocaine in the trunk. So, he is the 80s. He's a lot of people have said he's like the weakest because his individual robot legs are kind of on this funky mechanism, but once you figure out how it works, it's not a problem. Breakdown is awesome. Then there's Off-Road, who is the replacement for Wild Rider, and he's basically Wild Rider as a pickup truck.
Okay.
And he's actually, again, he's got a very kind of late 80s, early 90s kind of paint scheme to him, where he's got like some of those wavy racing stripes along the side. Now, I will say as a whole, the Stunticons are a bit more unique because unlike the aerial bots, each of the individual Stunticons has their own unique transformation scheme. Like, you don't feel like it's the same guy, right?
Right.
Like, each is unique, each has their own, engineering qualities. The best one, the most interesting is actually Off-Road, because the Off-Road skeleton is basically the aerial bots. They just replaced all of the plain bits of truck bits. But he transforms exactly the same way. He even uses the same mechanics in how his legs split in half and fold down. So that's interesting. No real complaints outside of it. Breakdown's my favorite. Dead End has been getting a lot of love, and I've got to admit, he's awesome. In terms of how he transforms, they do a real unique thing to get the back of the car to form the legs of the standalone robot. So it's solid. Dragstrip is a bit plain by comparison, but he does everything he needs to do. So let's get to the torso. Motormaster. Now here's the interesting thing. In Wave 1, they released an Optimus Prime torso alongside Silverbolt. And the Optimus Prime torso is for an Optimus Prime combined form that's going to combine with other Autobots that they're going to release at a later date. And Motormaster is a repaint and remold of Optimus Prime. Now, a lot of people thought that Optimus Prime was the weaker of the, of the two Wave 1 combiner torsos.
Right.
Motormaster is awesome. And it's really got me thinking that Motormaster, I think, must have been the original plan. It must have been the original intended use for the mold. And then Optimus Prime, even though he was released first, was the repaint. Because, okay, here's what's different about them. They have different truck mode grills. They have different tooling along the top of the truck mode for, like, the headlights, I guess.
Right.
And the front bumper is different. And then the robot mode chest is different. Optimus Prime has his classic, window chest, whereas Motormaster has kind of an alien, Cybertronian armored look. And then of course the heads are different. other than that, they're the same toy. I think the reason why I think Motormaster is just heads and shoulders over Prime in terms of quality is because it was originally made as Motormaster, and then they decided, hey, let's make an Optimus Prime out of it, and then they sort of tried to apply Optimus Prime's stylings on top of a toy that wasn't designed to be him.
Right.
So when you get the Optimus Prime figure, it's very... He doesn't seem to have Prime's proportions, and the proportions work great for Motormaster. It's just that for Optimus Prime they don't work, and that's because I don't think the toy was ever meant to be Optimus Prime in the first place.
Right.
So, that's the main difference. So if anyone picked up that original Optimus Prime toy and was a bit let down by it, don't let that deter you. Motormaster is pretty cool, and he doesn't suffer from the same problems. He also comes with a new weapon. Optimus Prime came with double blasters. Motormaster comes with a giant sword for Menasor that splits into a smaller sword and a gun for his individual robot mode. And the tiny guy, last but not least before I get into the Menasor combined mode, the Legends toy that they added is Blackjack. He is a tiny black sports car. Unlike Power Glide, he actually fully integrates into the Menasor mode. He doesn't really do much. Basically, all you do is you stick him in car mode, and then you slide him onto some pegs on Menasor's chest, and he's like a chest plate. And you don't even really need him, because there are some flaps that you can fold on top of Menasor's chest, so that you don't even need to use him as a chest plate. But I do like that, unlike Power Glide, he actually does integrate into the combined robot. I mean, that's nice. He's not just some stupid gun that you can ignore entirely.
Right.
And he's a great, fun little figure too. So the Legends guys, a lot of people are turned off by Legends. I look at the Combiner Wars Legends. They seem to be fun. In terms of a combined mode, Menasor is pretty awesome, but there's no denying that, man, his proportions are just a bit out of whack. Not as bad as, say, Fall of Cybertron Bruticus, who had one arm, who was just entirely out of proportion and just kind of made him look silly from certain angles.
Right.
There's nothing particularly wrong about Menasor. It's just that he seems like a bit more blocky than he should, and he kind of comes off as a bit bloated, from some angles. Well,
I mean, Menasor, even like the G1 Menasor, was always a bit of an oddball, as a combiner, because he was a lot shorter than the others, and he did, even back then, have this kind of blocky thing going on with him.
Well, he's not short by any means. He's on par with Superion in terms of, tallness.
Right. I'm just saying, Menasor as a whole has always kind of been a bit of an odd one. Though I will reiterate, Menasor has always been my favorite combiner, with probably Bruticus as a close second.
I would not, if you are a fan of Bruticus, then I mean, not Bruticus, Menasor, then, I'd say that overall you're not gonna be disappointed. The combined mode, even though he's a bit more, bulky than I would have liked, it's still very solid.
Well, so was my ex-wife.
And on top of all of that, he's just solid again. Unlike Superion, he does feel more like five guys that you've slapped together instead of, a unified whole. But phrasing.
Oh, no, I am not editing that out.
Nor should you, sir. Nor should you.
Anyways, five guys slapped together for a unified whole. Go on.
A unified whole, sir. A unified whole. But, so he feels a bit segmented in that respect, but honestly, all of the individual Stunticons, especially if you're into cars, all of the individual car modes are awesome. The Menasor combined mode is still pretty sweet despite my concern, despite my nitpicks. So yeah, I can thoroughly recommend both Wave 1 and Wave 2, both the Stunticons and the aerial bots of Combiner Wars. If anyone out there is into that sort of thing, definitely worth your time and money, if you're able to find them.
Good deal.
Now, I do want to talk on the one thing that across the Combiner Wars that I'm not too thrilled about, like my one flaw, I guess. Each of the limbs comes with something what's being called a hand-foot gun. And what it is, it's basically this block that can either be a gun, a hand, or a foot. Now, none of these integrate into the individual robot modes, and I don't expect them to because they're basically combiner kibble. So it is what it is. It's one of the necessary evils of combiners. Whatever. It's cool. The thing that I'm not so thrilled about is that in addition to the hand-foot gun, each of the limb robots also comes with their own personalized weaponry. All of the aerial bots come with handguns. And then the Stunticons seem to come with melee weapons. Off-road has an axe, drag strip and breakdown have swords, and then Dead End comes with kind of just a club he uses to bludgeon people. But the problems that I have in that, in all cases, the individual weapons that aren't the hand-foot guns, they don't integrate into vehicle modes at all. Like, you can plug them onto ports, but they don't integrate in any satisfying way. They all just kind of hang off the vehicle modes, and that's a shame, because it turns out, when you do it like that, you just get the situation where all of the vehicles just end up looking better if you don't attach the weapons. And I think that I can't get too mad because at the same time they had to be limbs first and foremost, so maybe they just couldn't integrate weaponry into it, but it's a tiny bit of a bummer.
Right.
But that's my Combiner Wars spiel, I guess, until the Protectobots show up.
I gotcha. Well, sounds good, and maybe if funds and availability permit, I can grab some of these before they go bye-bye. We will go ahead and move on, though, to our last topic of the evening.
MMO subscriber numbers?
Yes. So, now, historically, whenever Mike and I do one of these segments, if the WoW subscriber numbers have declined, we always say, well, the game's not dying, blah, blah, blah. And we stand by that now. But I have to say, even this has kind of made me blink a little bit.
Well, Warlords of Draenor, when Warlords of Draenor launched, they announced that their subscriber numbers had shot up to
10 million.
They were just below 7 million at the end of Pandaria.
Right.
And then I think they were like 6.8 million at the end of Pandaria. They shot up to 10 million and change with the release of Draenor.
Right.
And now it seems almost all of those new subscribers have left. Because they are back down to 7 million.
Yeah, every last goddamn one of them. This is the singular greatest quarterly subscriber loss that World of Warcraft has ever suffered.
Now, usually you do see a dip because...
No, if you look back historically over the graphs, since Cataclysm, there's been a little bit of a dip post-expansion release, but that's just been like the trend since Cataclysm. And, even then, like, you'll see, it still remained, like, relatively static until towards the end of the patch, or the end of the expansion, and then it goes down. But, yeah, this is
a noticeable dip, is what we're saying.
This is a huge fucking dip. This is roughly a third of their entire subscriber base within one single quarter saying, nope. And,
I can tell you why it is.
Well, there's a couple reasons why, I think. And I don't think it has to do anything with the quality of Warlords of Draenor itself, because it's a good expansion. It's a very good expansion.
It does remain solid. Yeah, it is good. But there have been missteps that I think have contributed to this.
And the first one was the abysmal launch.
I can't speak to this at all.
Yeah, no, now Mike and I, we didn't experience any problems, but there were too many reports of it, and Blizzard gave away a free week of time to everyone who had been subscribed during that period. And
which was weird, because I logged on. That was actually the first time I had heard that there had been a problem. I saw on MMO Champions, Blizzard is apologizing for the glitches on launch and is giving a free week of game time to everyone to make up for it. I was like, I didn't even know there was a problem. I just got a week for free. Sweet.
Right, exactly. So I mean, there was a legitimate severe problem upon launch, and it's been called, even though, Mike and I, again, didn't experience any issues with it, it's been called the worst, Blizzard launch ever, even worse than Diablo 3.
Was it just the fact that I wasn't playing during launch? I first logged into Warlords of Draenor the day after launch, after I had gotten home from work.
No, I was logged on, about 3 hours after launch, and I had no issue whatsoever. During that course of that week, I did run into one time where I was in queue for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. But then again, you're going to have that on launch week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things that you just kind of take it and you take your punches and roll on.
Yeah.
But it was an abysmal launch by all accounts, and I think that was factor number one. Factor number two, which I think may have probably played a greater part, was the fact that patch 6.1 was a goddamn joke. There the selfie patch. Whoop-de fucking do. There was no appreciable amount of content in that patch whatsoever.
No, there really isn't. And now when you look at the patch notes for 6.2, we've got stuff like, we're gonna go to Tanaan Jungle. We have to stop Gul'dan, who's taking control of the Iron Horde. We're storming Hellfire Citadel. We're going to add we're going to add a naval base to the garrison. So you look at it and you're like, okay, there's actually adding stuff. Cool. They didn't do that in 6.1. 6.1 seemed like one of those sub patches, right?
6.1 was more along the lines of something that you would expect at the end of an expansion. Like that pre-new expansion, like quality of life improvement shit that they're getting in to shore up the game for the coming expansion. That's kind of what it felt like.
But instead, so you have all these people, these like 3 million people who jumped on board for Draenor, and so they played through the initial game, 6.0, and they're like, okay, that was sweet. What's next? And then Blizzard was like, here's 6.1, where we're adding no new raids, and no new zones, no new content. In terms of content, the only real thing that they added was that every now and then, you get like some daily quests, from your garrison. But nothing in terms of actual new content.
Right.
And so the content drought that you usually see at the end of an expansion popped up in the middle of it.
Yeah, well, even at the beginning, I mean, in this particular case, well, since there evidently are only going to be 2 patches for this expansion, I guess one could say in the middle, but I don't know, Blizzard, they've never shied away from experimenting with how they do things, and this is clearly the result of the subscriber base rejecting whatever experiment that they were attempting with this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know, on MMO Champion, there was really no statement from Blizzard addressing it.
Well, what can they say exactly? The closest that we got was that there was one WoW developer had said on the eve of the 6.1 release that he couldn't wait until content patches were content patches again.
Right, and that I think that statement right there, I mean, personally, that just enraged me further, because it's a case of, well, you stupid dolt, you're one of the ones making the patches. So if you want them to have content, then put some bloody content in them. And there wasn't any. So I don't know.
I think this is a case of Blizzard. Okay, you said that they're not shying away from experimenting. I think this is them they want to get to these shorter expansions, right? Because they want to do that thing where it's an expansion a year, or maybe an expansion every year and a half.
Right.
And so if you're going to do that, you need shorter expansions. And I think this is the first go at that, being only a 2-patch expansion, and they're not sure how to handle it. Like, so maybe their initial thing was, well, we'll have the first patch not be so much, and then we'll go all in on the second patch, and obviously that hasn't worked. So it wouldn't surprise me if the expansion after Draenor is another 2-patch expansion, but they try to even out the content distribution between the two.
But here's where it's going to be the overall problem, though, because at the end of the day, what you're going to have is an expansion that A, was $10 more than its predecessors, and B, only actually had one content patch within it. And that, on the whole, is an equation that I don't know how well people are going to digest that, because you're paying more, you're getting less. Is this the price that we're going to be paying for year and a half expansion cycles?
If it is,
and if it is, will it be enough?
I'm okay.
Is the trade-off worth it?
I'm okay with the patch. I'm okay with the price if, in the future, they evenly distribute the content between the 2 patches. If every expansion is going to be a 2-patch expansion, then I want to see the new content after release get evenly distributed between point 1 and point 2. Not just all dumped into point 2.
Right. And the thing is, like you said earlier, well, what could Blizzard possibly say about it? The thing is, and I hate to say this, but if Ghostcrawler were still here, he would have talked to the fans. He would have said, yeah, this fucking sucks. I'm sitting here curled in a fetal position, drinking gin out of a coffee mug. But he would have he might have been a bit of an arse at times, but he at least would reach out to the fan base and he would say, yeah, we're doing this because of this, that, and the other. We don't know how it's going to work. We're waiting for the numbers to come in. He was always, whether you liked him, whether you loved him or hated him, he was always level and honest. And to my knowledge, besides that one offhanded comment that I still maintain did more harm than good, Blizzard hasn't really said anything about this. So, I'm wondering if, the main thing I guess that I want to know is why 6.1 had no content. What decision-making process went into that? Because
I think I can tell you what it was. Because there was talk in 6.1 about, we even touched this, about how there was going to be new content, a new questing hub for level 100 characters in the Iron Docks. And then that got scrapped and pushed to 6.2. Honestly, I don't think they had anything ready when it came time for 6.1.
And the question, then again, the question is, well, why the fuck did you not? I mean,
I don't know. It seems like they've really been behind the ball lately, at least since the end of Pandaria, at least since they started Draenor. They've been behind the ball, things haven't been ready on time, and things just seem half-baked.
Right, and the question here is, is this another case of they're still breaking in the greenhorns, or is this a case
possibly
of, design and marketing strategies being altered and adjusted and just blowing up in their fucking faces? There's a lot of different variables that are going into this, and a lot of different reasons that these things could be happening. They've been very quiet about all of it, and I don't like it. And I'm not saying WoW is dying. I'm not even saying it's in danger, because I know Blizzard will. If Blizzard does anything right, they do learn from their mistakes and they go on to make brand new ones. This here is a brand new mistake, an egregious mistake, one that's hurt them I mean, they feel that. I'm sorry. I know it's WoW. I know it's, the granddaddy of all MMOs, and,
Well, 7 million subscribers is still, 6 million over the next highest competitor?
Basically, I don't know the numbers for the others, but, it's substantially more than its nearest competitor, I'm quite sure. Still, though, you feel that. 3 million people up and quit your ass in a single quarter, you're going to feel that.
And if they don't feel it, I can tell you who will feel it, and that's their bosses at Activision and who look at the stock reports.
Right. And so something is going to be done in response to this. I'm just curious.
Chris Metzen's going to get a very angry phone call from whoever's running Activision.
They need to cut off his fucking nose candy is what needs to happen until shit picks back up. And
okay, Chris, you will. Chris, no more cocaine.
He's too busy touching his inner 6-year-old.
Chris, you're gonna put down the Overwatch demo, and you're gonna fix WoW, okay?
The thing is, I don't think Chris needs to fix WoW. I think someone else needs to fix WoW. I think,
they went to Dave Cossack, and some people are saying he's part of the problem, so I don't know.
He's Metzen's hand puppet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so it's basically same boss,
new boss, same as the old boss, exactly.
Yeah.
I want to see what they're going to do to fix this. I would like to see an explanation. I don't think we're going to get one at this point.
Well, I don't know what they could possibly say. They're not going to come out and say we fucked ourselves. They're not going to say that.
They have in the past, I mean, in their own way, in Blizzard. I mean, you look back on that WoW 10th anniversary documentary they made, and, they're talking about all these great things that they had and all these expansions, and they go to talk about Cataclysm. Like, we did have an expansion called Cataclysm, yes. Moving on to Mists of Pandaria. It was just that kind of admitting.
So Cataclysm happened, moving on.
Right, exactly. Nothing to see here. Blizzard is a company, I will give them the fact that they can be very humble at times, in as much as a mega company can be. They are a much more open and honest, traditionally, with their player base than most of their contemporaries. Mm-hmm. And I've always applauded them for that, and that seems to be kind of lacking here. I'm sure we'll hear something eventually, if only in retrospect, as to what the fuck happened, but I would like that information sooner rather than later, because I want to know that, this game that so many of us have invested so many hours of our lives into and have that's been a part of our lives for so many years in some cases, I want to know that the caretakers of this aren't dropping the goddamn ball.
Well, yeah, and I think honestly what I'd just like to hear is, I'd like to hear what happened with 6.1, why was so little added with it, and what are you doing to ensure that we don't get such a non-event for a patch again? That's basically what I want from them.
I mean, World of Warcraft, it's one of those games that it's transcended being a game. Mm-hmm. I mean, for so many people, it's a meeting ground, it's a social area, it's a community, as much as any real-life, tangible meeting group that you would go to, any group of friends that you would hang out with. And in that sense, just for its longevity, people have a vested interest in this. Mm-hmm. And seeing things like this, well, again, I'm not going to say WoW is dying, but it certainly makes one sit up and take notice. Now, they could be worse, and they could be like the poor blokes that were running fucking Wildstar, which is basically, I'm gathering, de facto dead.
Well, Wildstar, for those, is another case where you had people leave a huge company and they decide, we're gonna do it our own way. Basically, from what I gather, and you can correct me because I think you know more about the background of this than I do, Jack, but
a little bit more.
From what I understand, when WoW started, vanilla WoW had kind of a very hardcore edge to it. It was a very kind of hardcore game, right?
Well, kind of, but I mean, like, even at the time, WoW was casual compared to fucking EverQuest. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of the, like, vanilla worshippers, they don't mention that. Mm-hmm. But anyways, go on.
But my point being that, it had a lot of hardcore elements, to it.
Right.
And so when WoW started to get very popular, and they started when the decision was made to start making it, casual for, the casual player base, to make it not so daunting to those people, a lot of the developers, kind of said, well, we want to make a more hardcore game. So they went off and they made Wildstar. That is how I understand it. And they've said that they were okay with a smaller player base because they wanted basically that hardcore they only wanted people who wanted a hardcore game.
Right. They were catering to a specific demographic, and that was the more hardcore gamer, and they were fine with that. Their game and their business model, they claimed, were designed around that. Mm-hmm. And even this having been admitted by the developers themselves, you still had people running around on MMO Champions saying, well, this is going to kill World of Warcraft.
No. No.
Here we fucking sit, not even a year later.
2,000 subscribers.
Yeah. 2,000.
Hello?
2,000 subscribers. I know that devs said that they anticipated a smaller player base. I don't think this is quite what they had in mind.
Well, it's 2,000, and they had a larger one. This is a huge decrease. Like, MMO Champion has the graph if you want, from a few weeks back, if you want to scroll back through the news archives. But you think WoW's graph going from 10 million to 7 million is depressing. Wait until you go from 100,000 to 2,000. That is a fucking...
Now, did
that's
all
a
this,
lead balloon.
Now, did this happen all in one cycle, or was this just a steady atrophy?
It was gradual for a while. It was at 100,000, and then it was it was a gradual decline until it kind of just fell off a cliff.
I got you. All the rats jumped off the ship.
And here's the thing. I was actually interested in Wildstar. I saw the promos for it, and now I'm not a hardcore gamer by any stretch of the imagination, but the story they concocted for it, the races, the characters, the setting, it all seemed like something that I would be interested in. And I guess they need me more than ever to finally bite the bullet and sign up for it.
Okay, now here's the thing. Now, I'm actually looking at this graph right now. And this is where, sir, you could stand to do a little bit more research.
Oh.
You poor bastard. This graph doesn't actually indicate subscribers. NCSoft had their Q1 2015 earnings call recently, and while they don't release subscriber numbers, they do break down sales by game, which gives us an idea of how popular the game is. Wildstar had another smaller decline this time around. And yeah, they are at about 25 to 2,700 subscribers, looks like, from this. So this isn't necessarily a subscriber, a subscriber listing.
Okay. My bad on that. But at the same time, I will say in my defense, when you put that story right under the WoW subscriber graph, one, I'm gonna make that mistake, and two, 2,000, 2,500 a drop to 2,500 sales. That's not much better.
No, it's not. I mean, it is still significant. I mean, if you look at this graph, it does tell a clear story. And that story is all the people that are interested in playing Wildstar are currently already playing it. Both of them. And, you look back to July of 2014, and even then it was just under 30K. Mm-hmm. And then you go down to the next quarter, which is, October of 2014, and it's gone down by nearly half. And then, down to 5K in January of this year, and now we're in May, and the April numbers report 2,500. So, new people aren't subscribing to this game, and it is significant because that kind of lack of interest from new players signing up is not going to be. It's not going to be enough to compensate for churn. So they're going to end up losing more than they're gaining. I don't see, the people who always say such and such MMO is going to quote unquote kill World of Warcraft, they're goddamned idiots. Not just so much because WoW is so unstoppable and almighty and I'm a fanboy, but because they clearly don't understand how the market works.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the idiots who were saying that Guild Wars 2 was going to kill WoW, they were goddamn fools. Because Guild Wars 2 is free to play once you buy the game.
So it was never going to kill WoW because people could continue to pay for WoW and have Guild Wars 2 for free, which is what I do.
Right. Exactly.
The reason why I have Guild Wars 2 is because it's not asking me to make a choice, basically.
Right. And Guild Wars 2 never, and in that sense, it never tried to kill WoW. It's saying, hey, we got this. You want to play it? And it's no more commitment involved than if you go and buy any other fucking game out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, saying that Guild Wars 2 was going to kill WoW is the same as saying that fucking Call of Duty is going to kill WoW.
I don't know. Call of Duty has a dog.
Call of Duty dog. You know, you buy the damn game. You pay your $60. Well, in your case, I think you pay like 20 or 30. But,
Yeah,
I mean,
I got Guild Wars 2 for a great deal.
yeah, I mean, you know, you ante up, you pay your fucking money, and then you play it when you want. And that was, you know, I think that's largely why that game is still doing fairly decently.
Yeah, they're not they're not at WoW numbers, but you know they're at a very healthy level.
Now you have Wildstar, who, to my knowledge, is still maintaining by a subscriber.
It is a
model.
Yes, it's a subscribe. It is subscriber driven. It is like WoW, and the reason they said that they don't want to make it free to play is because they want to keep it exclusive.
Right.
And given these latest numbers, maybe it's time to rethink that strategy.
Well, it's exclusive, all right. It's pretty goddamn exclusive. I applaud their efforts in making this game exclusive.
So do you think if we were to, boot up Wildstar, we could both get into one of the two guilds in the entire game?
No, we're fucking scrub lords. We both know this.
Oh, no. Us playing Wildstar would be just the most pathetic thing.
It would be. Yeah. And you can only imagine, I mean, since they're deliberately cultivating this player base,
just how full themselves that Wildstar player
right.
base is.
I mean, I haven't talked to anyone who's actually played Wildstar.
You're not elite enough for them to talk to you, that's the thing.
Well, yeah, probably. But I mean, I haven't talked to anyone who's actually played the game, so I mean, I really can't tell you what their community is like.
It's probably very smug.
And that's, I mean, I might be wrong, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm envisioning when I'm thinking about them, because I mean, if you're catering to this demographic, and this demographic traditionally has a certain mindset on the whole, not saying every last one of them are like this, but on the whole, there is going to be that mindset. And yeah, I don't think it'd be a very pleasant place for blokes like you and I to fucking hang out.
If it wasn't subscription based, if it was free to play, I would pop on, right? I'd pop on to like the level 1 starting zone. How do you get to Outlands?
Uninstall the game! You suck, your family sucks, anyone who's ever sold you coffee sucks, go to hell. Kill yourself.
I hope you die in a car accident.
Yeah, exactly.
But someone actually wished that on me in WoW.
Well, that's okay. It happens. It happens. So I'm thinking this is probably it for episode 54 of Basically a Geek Show, unless there's something further you wish to add.
No, it's, I would only add it is the end of episode 54, Basically a Geek Show, and it is the end, probably of Wildstar, time to play the bagpipes and wish it well into the great unknown.
Yeah, well, I would
enjoy Knights of the Old Republic and what was it, Age of Conan?
Or, no, it's the Old Republic, but yeah, I can tell you stories about that game because I started playing it a few days ago.
What,
but,
Knights of the Old Republic?
Yeah.
I've heard that it's great until you get to endgame and then there's shit all to do.
Real quick, I'll just give you my impressions of it.
Okay.
It's developed by BioWare. The story is fantastic.
Okay.
It's engrossing. It's awesome. I love it. But then it's also ran by EA, who are the goddamn Sith Lords. And everything is a goddamn paywall. Bank space is a paywall.
I've heard that having more than one bag is a paywall. Like one bag.
I don't know about that. But I do know that like having a bank space is a paywall. Even typing in group chat is a paywall until level 10.
It's basically free to play, but then with
yes.
with a winky smiley
right,
face.
exactly. And, it's kind of a shame. I actually do like it enough to where I would consider doing, a month or two subscribing every now and then, because it is a very well done game. Mm-hmm. It's just got so many diabolically placed paywalls that it brings EA evil to new heights or lows, however you wish to look at it. So that's my thoughts on the Old Republic.
It's like what happens when you introduce an EA executive to the concept of free to play, pay to win.
Yeah, and I mean,
why did we make them pay to everything?
I'm only like level 13 or something like that. I have ran a dungeon in the game, and it was good. My only complaint is, those cutscenes. Those cutscenes where you make your decision choices, very typical of BioWare, of course. And they work great when you're just by yourself, but if you're in an instance, not so much, and it very much kind of breaks up the momentum.
Well, you gotta hurry, because, you've got like a whole group of people that you have to keep up with.
Right, exactly. They are well written enough, though, to where even if you're skipping through them, you can kind of tell what's going on and you don't miss any major plot points. So I'll give them kudos for that. Again, a very, very well written game. From a story standpoint, I honestly, I would recommend people who like Star Wars, even just like a good story in a game, to check it out. Don't have any high expectations of, in-game content, because, I've heard about it, I haven't participated in any of it.
I heard there is none, that basically everyone was like, oh, this game's awesome, and then they got to the end, and there's nothing to do.
Right, yeah, and, though that was years ago when it first launched, like 3-4 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, that may have changed. I'll find out. I do really enjoy it, though.
Out of curiosity, what are you playing?
I'm playing a tank, actually, a Jedi tank.
So you're on the side, so you're not a Sith, you're on the side of the Republic.
Yeah, I'm on the side of the Republic. Though I'm a dark Jedi. I'm going dark side as a Jedi. You can do that.
Yes. You know who else did that?
Mace Windu.
Yes.
Yes.
And he was tired of those motherfucking Sith in his
He's sick and tired of these motherfucking Sith in this motherfucking Senate. And his ass got launched out of a fucking window, so, you'll have that. But anyways, that is it for episode 54 of Basically Geek Show. Mike, do you care to recite the endless litany of banal places where people can reach us but never do except for the forum?
Well, you can catch us, you can send us an email at basicallyageekshow@gmail.com. At A Geek Show on Twitter, and then you can catch us on Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube, and of course at basicallyasportshow.com, where you can check out this show and the other fine podcasts in the Basically A Podcasting Network.
There are others?
There's Basically a Sports Show, and then there's Basically a Football Show, which should be starting up soon.
Yeah, well, we all know we're the ones that matter the most.
Of course, yeah.
Love you guys. Anyways, have a good week, everybody.
See ya.